So welcome to today's midnight training session within a series of all of our training sessions. This is our first multi-part session. Today we'll be going over the key points for the basics of reports design within Midnight. I'll start off by going over a few things that you might not be fully aware of regarding the setup of our reports, and then we'll dive into the reports module itself for a quick glimpse at how the reports are actually handled. For starters, we'll take a look at the admin menu. Under here, we'll take a look at our report type objects. In here, this is where your reports are classified, meaning that this is where they're identified as, say, being order-based reports as opposed to estimate reports, sales reports, etc. In here, you can organize your reports and see what other types of reports there are. The box for show in the reports menu, or the column here, for yes versus no, refers to whether or not this category of reports is available for view within the reports module. For instance, you'll see that I have my accounting reports set to appear in the reports module, but not my estimate reports. This is something we can see here by just taking a quick glimpse. Generally, reports that can be accessed within their respective modules, such as estimates, orders, and purchase order reports, will be reserved by default to appearing within their registered or recognized category, whereas other reports such as accounting, sales, and job costing reports will appear within the reports menu. Next, we'll take a look at the reports themselves. Under the report objects list, you'll find a complete list of all of the reports that you have in your system. By default, when the screen is opened, you'll be given a view of all of your active reports. You can tell this by the active equals yes column right here. If you change this to no, you'll see your inactive reports. Because Midnight does not support a delete function for the reports that you may have in your system, this is what we have as an alternative, simply hiding your reports from view. This allows us to continue updating them as necessary and allows you to have an original report in which to fall back on if you created a copy that was based on one of our currently existing or standard reports. The other columns in here are a little different from what you may expect. The report name column refers to how we see the report on the back end of our system. This is different from the display name column, which is what you see when going through the Midnight modules. The report type determines where a report will exist. The cloned from is a column in which the report's original report, if it was copied from a report, would be listed, allowing you to tell what reports have been built from what reports. The last updated and last updated by allow you to see the last user to have logged in, entered the editor of the reports designer, and actually made a change. This can be useful in terms of tracking to make sure that nothing unusual is happening on your side, or in the case of a report breaking suddenly, you can look at this list and see the most recent person of which would have entered the report, allowing you to properly identify who may have caused a problem if you're not entirely sure. The Show on DJB column, when set to yes, allows you to see a report on the dynamic job board in association with an order in which it may be tied to. You'll see that we have some work order reports by default set to appear under the DJB. In this case, because only order-based reports are compatible under this functionality, you can adjust this to have other reports display there, but do note that other reports, customer lists, estimates, job costing reports, may not provide the expected results when loaded. The Show All Pages function allows you to have a report that would normally load, say, 2, 3, or 4 pages, to have all of them load simultaneously rather than one page at a time. This is nice because it allows you as the user to view multiple pages of a report without having to load through each one at a time. It also allows you to use a Control F function or a find function to see more information rather than having to use the find function by looking one page at a time. We'll see in this case my customer list here is small. It loads just a half page worth of data. But for a larger report such as a sales report, you may want to see a little bit more info. Well, you can adjust this so that way within the view of the report itself, you're looking at all of your information. Oops. You may want to just take advantage of the standard and apply it to your report. One thing to be aware of when doing this, though, is that if you have a report that would load a lot of pages, such as a customer list when your client base has about 1,000 customer records, that would be loading a pretty massive report. The important thing here to remember is that if your report would normally load only a few pages, like an invoice or a job ticket, that if you take advantage of our show all pages, you reserve it for that. And you leave our sales reports to a manual use case here with this continuous or multiple pages view, allowing you to search for what you need in a quicker fashion regarding the load speeds of the report itself. The filter by user function, when turned on, allows you to have reports specified based on a user in which is logged into the site at the time. This is a security feature and prevents certain Midnight users from being able to access reports that they shouldn't have access to. And finally, the attached file as name is the name of the report file as a PDF is generated and attached to an outgoing email through Midnight. Or you can email reports by clicking the email button within the report itself. You'll see a pop-up will be generated and a name for the attached file will be listed here. This name comes from the attached file as column, allowing you to customize what the names of your outgoing files are actually called. To change any of this information, you can click the Edit button for the row, change up, say, the attached file name, the Show on DJB permissions, or even hide the report entirely. And to complete your changes, you can either hit the Update button, the button here with the Save icon, or the Cancel button to dismiss your changes. Finally, under the Global Settings, you'll find a couple of choices in which your reports can be customized and modified. For any reports that reference licensee information or your company's information, such as the return address and specific letterhead logo, this info can be standardized here in the company settings view for the company that you'd like to associate it to. The report logo is what will display in the upper left of, say, one of your invoice or estimate reports. And the address information comes from what you have here in your address, city, state, and zip. Additionally, under the Reports submenu, there's default BCC, which refers to an email account on your side, which can be set as an auto storage method account. What I mean by this is that because Midnight does not store the outgoing emails from itself, you can use this to have emails backed up on a server on your side for quick access that allows you to show historical records of outgoing emails from Midnight. There's also a default email signature, which is a company-wide default. This is not a user-specific email signature and does not support the inclusion of image files. Finally, the enable role-based security on reports. This function, when turned on, allows you to have security roles that can access specific report groups. This list can be controlled within the security create role write submenu. Upon selecting one of your security roles, such as sales, if you click the blue underlined reports word, you'll be given a menu in which you can pick which reports are available for this particular security role and any employee that has it, and which ones are not. For instance, you may want to hide sales reports from your sales reps, but you may wish to keep customer lists. You can tell which ones are which by the active reports, the available reports or the locked out reports. To change what you see, simply check the checkboxes for the reports in question. Hit add or add all to bring them over to the locked out reports side. And to undo a change, you can select it and click the remove or remove all to bring it back to the available reports list. After making these changes, be sure to click Submit within the Create Role Write screen here to commit those changes. Now let's take a look at the more pertinent subject matter, actually creating the reports. In most cases, you'll want to create a report that's pretty similar to one which already exists, such as your own invoice or your own work order. To do this most effectively, the easiest way to access that report for a base is to open that report from within its respective module. After doing so, in the upper right portion of the screen, you'll see a Create Report button. By clicking this and then selecting under the Clone From list, the report in which you're trying to make a copy of, and then giving it a new name, this is all you need to actually get your report up and running. Once you click Submit, your new report is created. It's given a new ID number, which you can see here in the web address. And upon refreshing the screen that you were in when you created the report, you'll begin to see that report as finally becoming available. Additionally, if you were to exit without saving your report, it is still created and would thus be visible under normal circumstances. We strongly suggest making clones of any report that you wish to make modifications to, rather than modifying our standard versions of the reports or the ones that come prepackaged with Midnight. The primary reason for this is that as we run our update processes or patches to improve Midnight, we submit data and code changes that revert reports back to their original status, so that way we can update them to include any new functionality that they may be expected to include following the update. What this means, in short, is that any changes you may have made to one of our standard reports will be reverted back to its original state and thus removed entirely. The cloned reports which are reports that you just create here and have an ID number that is not one of our standard ID numbers, will not be touched by our update process, meaning that you don't need to worry about us changing your reports when trying to update our own Midnight site. Now again, if we need to make any changes to this report, such as the outgoing email name or the report name itself, we can go into the Reports admin menu and make the changes under the report objects list to update the report with the proper naming conventions or otherwise. Once we're satisfied with our report, simply creating it gives us a working base that we can reference back to. And from here, and along every step of the way after making modifications and even before, we suggest going to File, Save As, leaving the report file as the default .mrt file type, and clicking Save to create a backup version of your report. In this case now, with the backup file, you can very easily load your information back in, meaning if a problem happens, such as you delete something by accident, or somebody else modifies the report and renders it into an unusable state, you can very easily get that report to show back up as it would have been originally designed to. We'll demonstrate in this job just to show you what I mean. In this case now, I have my work order summary report cloned to work order summary 2. Upon opening, we see our basic information here. If I were to make a change and then save that change, I may not be able to return the report back to its original state. For instance, getting rid of the barcode and the order header info block. Now if I view the report, you'll see that, well, we're missing a whole lot of information. To get this back, you can go to File, Open Report, select the .mrt file of the report in which you just created, click Open, and once you click the Save Report button, you've effectively reloaded your own backup. This is powerful because it allows you, as the user, to remedy a situation created by accident. If you were to request assistance from us here at Midnight, well, we don't have any issues helping you or doing this process ourselves. You could probably handle this process for a backup and restore faster than it would reach us via email. So we encourage keeping regular backups of your reports, either A, to utilize yourself, or B, to send to us, so that way we can return your report to its original state. Now, one final warning before we get to the report's editing process and data handling features. The report designer does not fully allow users to be logged in under multiple instances, meaning if you were to have two reports that are designed similarly and you wish to copy features from one into the other, while you can have two reports open or any number of reports open simultaneously, doing so does open up the risk of cross-saving your reports. What this means is that if you have two different reports open and click Save in one of them, the other one could be updated so that both of your reports end up becoming the same report. To prevent this, again, we simply suggest that you never have more than one of our report designers open simultaneously. With all that out of the way, we'll take a look at the report designer itself. You'll see under here a view that's pretty similar to what you might expect to see when modifying a Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel document. There are features in here that are similar, and if you have a background with Microsoft Access, you'll notice a lot of features in which are virtually identical. The way text is applied into reports like this is that a container or text block exists in which the contents of the text are controlled either by a text feature import here or by double-clicking and adding text into this expression editor here. As you make changes to the text, you'll see that your container is modified to display what it is that you're adding. And if you wish to make changes to the text within the container, you can control most of those features here at the top portion of your screen. Or by modifying them here on the right side of your Properties panel after you've selected your container or containers that you wish to modify. Well, you can have text in these containers. You'll also notice that there is data that would appear within these containers, such as the job name or customer name. You'll notice that in these cases, if I open my expression editor, you'll see that there are the brackets around the data element itself. This is important because this is a specific method in which the report system calls data to load onto itself. You can include both text and data calls in an expression. However, to do so, you need to make sure that what's within your brackets is specifically the data element and nothing else. For instance, if you wish to set up a name with a label in front of it, you can set up an instance in which you have some text and then the data call within the brackets. Noticing that the text here has changed in color slightly to indicate that what it is we're looking at is actually text for a data element. You can add multiple pieces of data within a single text container as well. If you know different portions of your data, you can either select one at a time by double-clicking it under this data column list, or under this expression editor list, picking which pieces of data you're looking for. To add more, you can click where you want this new element of data to appear, and then double-click the data element on the side here to get what it is in that you want to have added in. You can make changes to multiple containers at once by holding the Control key and clicking each piece or each item that you wish to make a modification to. And while you can modify the contents of each container by doing this, you can also utilize the Layout tab's alignment features to line up columns after you've selected them. In this case, I've selected many pieces of data, and I'm moving them entirely all at once. I can also click the Align to Left to line them all up here on the left side point, just for neatness. When you've selected a cell, you can control a lot of other features too, including the exact positioning in reference to the grid that you'll see it on under the position list here. You can control whether or not the text itself wraps, for instance, under the case of a long project name or service name, by making sure that word wrapping is turned on or set to true. And you can also make it so your containers change size or expand with text as they would need to by making sure the can grow feature is set to true. If you wish to change the dimensions of the page itself that you're referencing, such as changing this from an 8.5 by 11 to an 8.5 by 14, you can do so in a few areas, either here in the page height or in width, after clicking somewhere on the blank area of the report itself, or selecting under the page column, the page header, the actual size of the page in which you're doing your work on. You can also adjust your margins to make sure that everything fits within your printer as needed by selecting from the presets here, or by typing in your own margins here under the properties list. Finally, you can adjust your unit of measure by selecting from the bottom left corner whether you're running it in imperial or metric units of measure. This will change all of the current existing measurements to reference that particular new unit type, giving you some flexibility in terms of how it is that you set up your sizes and locations within the cells' references to each other. After completing your changes, you can click the Save Report button under Home, or under the File menu, Save Report. And to properly save your changes and exit, we always suggest utilizing the Exit button here. If you wish to preview a report before submitting out, you can click the Preview button, which will appear in the list of available pages, filling in your required search criteria to get something to load, such as in this case my order ID of 506, and clicking Submit to generate that data. Once you're complete, click Exit, and you're officially done with your work. There's quite a few other features in which our report designer includes, such as the inclusion of images, the setup of data to appear as you need in a table structure-like format, such as the general view of your line items on an invoice report, and different methods of sorting, grouping, and filtering. We'll be taking a look at those in our next training session on reports, as that pretty much handles the majority of the common use cases of report customization that you may run into. With that being said, there is one other element of the reports that we'll take a look at before we close today's session out. If you're running a report that does generate data en masse in a table-like format, you can push that data out of our system in a couple of different ways. More normally, upon viewing a report, you can push everything out to a printed document by clicking Print and actually printing it out to your desired printer. You can also modify your outgoing or saved out reports, so that way they save as a PDF. Or as a different file type, such as an Excel file, or even a CSV. When you're going to save to PDF, it's pretty simple. Click Save, PDF, and select any specifics in here that you need as far as your compression or resolution. Upon clicking OK, you're given a file. after you select where you want to appear. This file of which can be opened, viewed, and sent out to customers or internally as needed by email attachment. If you instead choose to save your text as a Excel file, you can select the Excel file option and change how your data exports out, whether you specifically want your data itself or if you want the entirety of the report, including formatting. You'll notice often that if you save out a report to include formatting, that text cells do come in shaped and sized strangely. Under normal circumstances, I would suggest doing an export to push out everything with only your data by excluding your object formatting. When everything is pushed out of Midnight, it comes out in a much more organized table grid view for easy usage, for summing, and other types of calculations. Finally, as a CSV, if you hit Save Data File, you can not only determine whether your file is a CSV or, say, XML, but you can also plug in your separator, which works as the delimiter for when you're actually pushing out your data. We'll take a closer look at how to make sure we set these up to export out correctly for what it is that you need your files to export out to. But to be aware that there is quite a bit in terms of ways to actually pull the data out of Midnight. With that said, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's session.